All right, so this is our informational writing lesson on how to add a mini story. So you guys, we have already studied narrative writing, which was the story where it started with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it went sequentially through time. And we've done opinion writing, where it was an essay with like an opinion and 3 reasons for it and 5 paragraphs. You have your introduction, your body paragraphs, and your conclusion. And those are 2 structures of writing. But the neat thing about informational writing is you can use any structure to teach. Sometimes you'll read a story that teaches you nonfiction information. Sometimes you'll read an essay that teaches you non-fictional information. And sometimes you'll read a book that has all of those structures inside of it. So today what I want to challenge you to do and invite you to do is that in kindergarten and 1st grade and 2nd grade and 3rd grade, when you wrote an informational book, it was just informational nonfiction writing that was expository, which means it wasn't like a story, it wasn't narrative. This time I want to invite you to have a book that has a lot of that kind of writing in it, but also has a section that's like a little mini story, because you guys are good at writing stories. And when you go into that mini story, I want you to think about all the things you know about narrative writing. So for the next 2 days, I'd like you to work on using the details and the facts that you know to create a mini story to put inside your book to help grab your reader's attention and teach them the topic. So right now you're probably thinking, what in the world is Ms. Laws talking about? Well, as I was reading this Revolutionary War book, most of it is expository writing where they're like telling all the information. In 1767, Parliament issued new acts. But then suddenly it starts doing this. On March 5th, 1770, a barber's apprentice named Edward Garrett was sent to collect payment owed by a British officer. Walking down the road, he came to a spot where he arrived at the British officers. "Do not enter," the guard shouted. A guard refused to let him in. "I have a right to go where I want. I'm an American citizen," he said. The 2 began arguing, and Sue drew the attention of nearby colonists. As people gathered around, the tension built. The colonists soon joined in the argument and dared the guard to shoot them. "Go ahead, shoot at us if you're so tough," they yelled. Do you hear how this sounds like a story? More British soldiers arrived and tried to break up the growing crowd. But the colonists menaced the soldiers and started to hurl objects at the soldiers. One of the British soldiers heard someone yell, "Fire!" A confused soldier raised his gun and, scared, he pulled the trigger, thinking that his captain had shouted an order and that he was being shot at. Other soldiers heard the shot and they began firing their weapons as well. 5 people, 5 American citizens, fell to the ground dead and 9 others were injured. This incident is now called the Boston Massacre. So friends, that was a mini story inside of this book. And then it goes back to talking about the incident and what happened and describing it. But for a while there, it grabbed your attention by telling you a story. And that story was from the perspective of the soldiers and what happened with them. So then the truth is that the Boston Massacre was actually retold from the perspective of the Americans, and they told the story way differently, more like this. "We were just peacefully going about our business, trying to do our things, when the British soldiers came up and started shouting at us and shooting at us. Soon they shot 9 of us dead for no reason." And that's a completely different perspective. So in 4th grade, one of your goals is to be able to look at anything from different perspectives. So that was a history story told from 2 perspectives. This book, When Lunch Fights Back, is also told using mini stories. So it starts out and it gives some information on predators. I read the introduction to you, but then it starts to tell stories. So let me tell you this story and see if it grabs your attention. This is about the slime fish, the hagfish. A hagfish slithers along the ocean bottom, moving like a snake. This primitive deep sea creature is nearly blind, but the hagfish follows the smell through the water. When it reaches the whale's carcass, it swims around the remains, sizing up the feast. Then the hagfish sinks its teeth into the dead whale's soft, rotting flesh and takes a big bite. As the hagfish eats, a shadow passes overhead. It's a shark. The shark is not interested in the dead whale, though. It's after fresh meat. Slowly circling, the shark edges closer to the hagfish until it's just inches away. In a blur of movement, the shark strikes. It grabs the hagfish in its toothy jaws and instantly lets go. The shark's mouth is overflowing with thick, snot-like goo. Ew. The slimy stuff fills up its throat and clogs its gills. Without gills to pull oxygen from the water, the shark can't breathe. It thrashes its head from side to side with jerky, desperate movements. Unharmed, the hagfish pays no attention. Strings of slime still ooze from its long, rubbery body as it goes back to eating. The shark convulses with what looks like a giant cough. Clouds of slime billow out from its gills and throat. Finally able to breathe again, the shark darts away without a backwards glance. Now again, this book is not all written like that. The very next page says the science behind the story and starts to tell it in an organized manner with subtopics and details and facts. But that part of the story was written like a story. And it's done that way to really grab your attention. Raise your hand if that grabbed your attention. How many people like the story part? So in your book, you can just go about telling it in a really factual way, but also it's really nice to take a break from that style of writing and go into a mini story. And in a minute, you're going to actually do this writing. So I'm going to have you go get your notebooks in a minute and do the writing. But right now, I want you to listen to one more. I'm going to share my screen with you and show you some kids writing, because I always think it's good for you to see the way a kid did this. And you might think, well, on my topic, how am I going to do that, Ms. Laws? I think you can do this for any topic. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you some writing like this, and then I'm going to put you in your own breakout room all by yourself. And if you don't understand or you don't have an idea, you can come back to the main room and ask me questions, and I can help you get started. After 15 minutes of writing, we're going to come back together, and I'm going to ask a couple people to read parts of their stories. Or if so many people want to share, I might put you in breakout rooms to share. Okay, so let me show you one more time what you're going to do in a minute. So you need to really pay attention to this part because you're going to have to do it. Here we go. Share. I'm going to take you to, first of all, Cambria's story, which this is the one that I linked to the first week of informational writing if you wanted to see an example of a really nice book. And she has a really big book, but this is page 6 of her book, and it says mini story. Her story is about the Louisiana Purchase. And so she was like, Ms. Lass, how do I write a story about the Louisiana Purchase? It's all just facts. And I said, well, imagine you were there when the Louisiana Purchase went through. So she did. She imagined that. And here's what she wrote. Some of this is true. Some of it is historic fiction. She had to imagine the details, right? Because she wasn't there. Do you think that that author who wrote about the hagfish was under the ocean and knew what the hagfish was thinking? No. So this is where you get to use your creativity combined with the factual evidence. You don't just make stuff up that couldn't be real. It needs to be realistic. So historic fiction. As I sat there in my office waiting to hear from James Monroe and Robert Livingston, I decided that I would transport through the New Orleans port first. But then, interrupting my thoughts, Mr. Monroe and Mr. Livingston walked in and told me what Napoleon had said. They responded that Napoleon had agreed. My heart jumped with joy until they said he had offered a whole lot of land with it if we bumped the price to $15 million. $15 million, I shouted. I had originally only wanted to go up to 10 million, but now the French leader Napoleon wanted 15 million. I was shocked at his response to my deal and told Livingston and Monroe to leave me to think by myself. I mean, he's bumping the price by 5 million, but on the other hand, he's offering the entire Louisiana territory as well as the New Orleans port. It was a big decision. $15 million for that much land? Since my mind was frazzled, I brought it up with the House of Representatives, and some of them wanted to cancel the whole purchase altogether, but some of them wanted it to proceed. As I sat there in hesitation, I was thinking to myself, there's about half and half of the people. How could we make it so that we knew the exact number? Then it came to me, a vote. The House of Representatives could have a vote. I went back to them with the idea and they agreed. We held the vote October 20th, 1803, and we all submitted our answers, and the vote for doing the Louisiana Purchase lost. Just kidding, it won. and the purchase of the territory doubled the size of our country. And now I'm planning on sending William Clark on an expedition with a crew of people to discover our newfound land. But that's another story. So she imagined she was Thomas Jefferson. She used the facts she knew about what really happened, and she made up this little story. Then, this is the challenge for tomorrow. She turned around and I said, Cambria, could you imagine that story from someone else's perspective? And she said, oh, that'd be really hard, Ms. Laws. I don't think I can. I said, well, what about Napoleon? And she goes, oh, that'd be fun to imagine what Napoleon thought. Let's do that. So she did the other side of the story. The fact that Thomas Jefferson has come into the House of Representatives today shocks me. Oh no, this isn't Napoleon. This is one of the guys in the House of Representatives. Okay, sorry, I thought I had it wrong. I think I told her to do Napoleon and she did somebody else. The fact that he's asking our opinion on the purchase of this land is shocking, and the fact that over half of the people agreed. I, for one, do not think we should purchase this land. I never thought we should have purchased that port. Though this is fine land, and I do think that $15 million is worth that much. At very least, I think it should have been at most $10 million, not the wrong price of $15 million. I, for one, disagree, I shouted so the entire room could hear. And I told him all that I have told you. But even after my persuasive piece of advice, he was still hesitant about whether or not. Oh my gosh, the answer is obvious. We should not buy the land, I thought to myself. Anyway, so she imagined being one of the other people in the situation and went back and rewrote the story. So today I was thinking to myself, well, how could you do that with a different topic? So I was thinking of one of your topics, and I actually thought of, this is Zeta's topic. She's doing a book on lynx. So I was thinking, how could I write a story about a lynx that teaches about a lynx from two perspectives? So here it is, the mini story of the lynx. I started out being the lynx. I could feel hunger in my belly, the deep hunger of winter when it's difficult to find prey. My nose told me something was nearby. Trotting lightly over the snow on my big furry feet. So I'm trying to include some details about lynx, and they do have big furry feet that help them move over snow. I moved toward the smell. Due to my keen sense of smell, I could detect many things. The fresh smell of pine trees in the mountains of my home, so I was trying to teach about where they live. Droppings from animals that I'd passed through, and one more smell better than all the others, rabbit, one of my favorite meals. As the smell became stronger, I slowed down and crouched, creeping along patiently. I am very good at being patient, since I've learned it's better to move slowly and get dinner than spring and miss out. After what seemed like hours, I could see the rabbit in the clearing. A few more feet and I'd be close enough to spring the 10 feet I was capable of. So that's a true story, true fact I learned about how far they can jump. Inching slowly, closer by, my fur blended in with the white snow and I was downwind. Now I used all the strength in my hind legs to hurl my body through space and latch my strong jaws onto the rabbit's neck. It was over in an instant, and I felt relieved to have food to warm me through another day. So then I asked myself, well, what other perspective could I talk about that story of the lynx through? And I thought, well, what about humans? So I did another side of the story like humans. Look at this, my son called from ahead of me on his cross-country skis. What happened here? I skied ahead, momentarily worried that something was wrong. As I came into the clearing, I could see red on the snow, blood. I thought, interesting. I skied up next to my son, who was looking at the snow. Look, Dad, tracks. Do you think it's a wolf? I looked closely at the large print, 4 big toes and a large pad, but no toenails. No, I think this is a cat because there aren't any toenail marks. Wolves, like dogs, can't pull their nails in, so they always leave tracks. This is very exciting because I think that we might be seeing one of the rarer cats in this area, the lynx. Are they dangerous? Asked my son, looking worried. They sure have big feet. We are way more dangerous to them than they are to us. They have been hunted for their thick winter fur almost to extinction. And now we have developed roads and cut down trees so they don't have much habitat left. But this is exciting. At least it looks like this lynx found dinner, replied my son, smiling as we skied on. So this is what you are going to do right now. I will take questions, and also if you have a question about like how to approach writing this story, you can stay in the room and not go to your breakout room. Do I have any just general questions, not specific ones right now before I send you to breakout rooms? You're going to take 15 minutes. You're going to take your topic and you're going to think of a way you could write a story, a mini story. from that topic. You only have to write one story today, and then tomorrow you're going to try to write that same story from a different perspective. So these are not questions about your topic, they're questions for the whole group right now. Alaya, or that's about your topic. Does anybody have a question for the whole group right now? Clara, go ahead.
So I don't actually have the information I need in order to run the mini story. I have an idea for it, but can I do the research for it today and then write it later today?
You can. The other thing you can do is leave the details out. That's such an excellent question. So
and then just have like the broad story like line.
Yeah, so one thing you can do is like if you kind of know it, but you're missing a bunch of the details, just leave a line where you need to add a detail. Like it was on blank and leave the date out, but put in some lines. And so and so and so and so. Maybe you don't know a name, put a blank line in there. And just try to write it as best you can. But I also trust you, Clara, to be able to finish it. But I want most people to try to write something right now. You don't have to use it. It'll be good practice getting back into the SAID writing. So I'm going to make breakout rooms. I'm going to recreate them right now. They are for one person each. So you're going to be alone in your breakout room. You're to work in your breakout room on your story. At the end of 15 minutes, I'm going to bring everybody back into the room and we're going to do some sharing. So you have 15 minutes to write. You're going to grab your notebook or go to your online site and work on your mini story. If you have a question, stay with me, okay? Here we go. Did I get it all? Looks like I did. Okay. You guys may go. If you have a question, stay with me. Oh, I didn't open the rooms. There we go. Try opening the rooms. That works better. Okay, go and write. Adrian, as soon as it's quieter in here, I'll take your question. Okay, Adrian, go ahead. What's your question?
So I have multiple ideas for my mini story. I have like 3 different ideas and I haven't exactly picked one yet. So I don't know what.
Remember when we talked about trying on shoes at the shoe store?
Yeah.
I would try on the ideas. Just sit down on a piece of paper or computer and just start typing one of them.
Okay.
Try the others out. Elisha, I saw you're doing it on German Shepherds, right?
Yeah, because I don't know how to write a mini story about that.
When I was a little girl, they had a TV show about this police dog who was a German Shepherd. Have you ever read about anything like that? German Shepherds used for police work. They also used German Shepherds in the war. So you can just, or you could just write about a dog like from the dog's perspective at home and then from the owner's perspective, right?
Okay.
So just imagine a story that would involve a German Shepherd and really this is to practice our writing style. Lily, what's your question?
So my introduction is already kind of like a mini story.
It is, but I think you could do another one. Like, honestly, there are so many cool things in Mongolia that you could write about. You could pretend to be on a traditional day for those eagle hunters. You could pretend to be the eagle hunter going out hunting with your eagle.
So like do an eagle and an eagle hunter perspective.
Wouldn't that be so cool? Yeah. Awesome. All right, Nora, what's your question, hon?
No one's in my breakout room.
I know. Everybody's alone in the breakout room, so you can get some work done today.
Okay.
And then if you don't know what to write, then you can come back to me, okay?
Okay.
All right, Alma, what's your question?
Could I do a story, because I'm writing about weather, so could I do a story that it's just like all made up and it was like someone was in a storm, or does it
but yes, although it wouldn't all be made up because you'd be using the facts that you've learned about storms to talk about like how it changes. So for example, I've read about people in tornadoes where it gets really kind of quiet and the sky gets a weird color, and electrical storms, it does that too. So just imagining, or having the radio go off with a warning siren, because some places have that too. Yeah, imagine it, but then just use what you know. That'll work great.
Okay.
And then Alma, you could also do it from 2 perspectives, like a person in a storm and then maybe a storm chaser. Have you researched those people who chase storms at all?
No, I don't think so.
Or even, you know how this year a bunch of people lost their power during that cold time of the year?
Yeah.
So you could do it from like somebody who lost power, and then the people who are out there trying to fix all the downed power lines from the ice or something.
Okay, yeah. I think I'll do it from someone's point of view in like their frozen house.
Yeah, and they were doing all sorts, like Ms. Nordstrom, the other fourth grade teacher, she was doing crazy things. Like she was taking her pots and heating up like a whole pan of water on the stove and then carrying it into the other room so the heat would go into the room. It was pretty crazy. Hi, Tomomi.
Okay.
What are you thinking of writing about, honey?
I have hard time starting my sentence.
Okay. So what are you gonna write about? Are you gonna be the whale? Or are you gonna be the sea anemone?
Sea anemone.
Oh, cool. So let's think. If you were a sea anemone, what would you think or feel? Do you think? They don't even have eyes, right? Do they have eyes?
No.
So then you might be like floating in the cool water. I could feel vibrations from a fish swimming near me. Ooh, I hope it lands in my tentacles, I thought to myself. You can just pretend that it thinks kind of like a person if you want to. Okay? Does that work for a starting sentence? Okay, good luck. Lida, hi, sweetie. What's your question?
I kind of need help with the start of my story.
Well, yours you should be ready for because it's the same topic that I used, wasn't it? What are you going to write about? You can do it just like I did, honey. Just try to copy what I did, where you talk about the lynx hunting and just include some details about his warm fur and his strong hind legs and
Okay.
and whatever that they would hunt for, and tell some details about where they live. Okay. All right, Gerard. You have a question? So Gerard, you're writing about a peacock. Can you turn on your screen so I can see you? Yeah. So Gerard, do you have a pencil handy? Or your document where you're doing your peacock? Okay, so let's start writing. What are you going to write about with a peacock? Where do peacocks live in the world? Do you know?
Yeah.
Where?
In the forest.
Okay, so what do peacocks eat?
They eat frogs.
They eat frogs? Wow. So do you want to have it about a peacock hunting for a frog? What do you think? Or you could have a peacock getting chased by something. What eats peacocks?
Usually we eat peacocks is like Indian people.
Okay. So do you want to have a person hunting for a peacock to eat?
I guess.
Okay, grab your pencil. Let's start writing. So remember how we wrote with SAID, setting, action, inner thought, and dialogue? So you said that they were in a forest. So describe the forest. What would the person see? How would they walk through the forest? Is it like a thick forest? Describe it to me. How would you describe this forest? What would you see if you were there? Is it hot? Is it cold?
I don't know if it's hot or cold.
Well, what would you see in the forest? You said a forest. Describe that to me.
Cold. Dark.
Come on, buddy. What would you see? You said forest. Well, then write down on the paper, just write down in a forest. Okay? That's what you said. Those are your words. So that's your setting. Let's add some action. So what would the hunter be doing as they try to find this peacock? What do you picture him doing?
Hiding and waiting for the peacock.
Hiding.
Okay.
The peacock.
Okay, so write that down. Hiding and waiting for the peacock to come. Perfect. Good job. All right, you guys, excellent job working. Do I have some kids who are brave enough to share what you wrote in your 15 minutes in your breakout room? Emily, read us one of your stories. Let me spotlight you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, since mine is on the All American Girls Baseball League, I did one on from one of the fans
Okay, cool.
and a perspective. Dear, do you want popcorn? My mom asked. No, thanks. We were at an AAGPBL game, the championship to be exact. It was Rockford Peaches versus Kalamazoo Lacey's. I really wanted the Peaches to win. Wait, what? That was such an unfair call, I yelled. My mother looked at me like I'd shown up to a fancy gala with pants on. So did all the fans around me. What? The ball was in the dirt and he called it a third strike. It made me want to jump out of my seat and scream. But then the batter, Dorothy Kamenchik, stepped out of the batter's box, took off her helmet and winked at me. I smiled back at her. It felt so good to know someone agreed with me, and the fact that they were my hero made it even better.
Awesome. Can I ask you a couple of questions? All those names, were those real historical names? Like of the baseball?
Dorothy Kamenchik
And were the
is
teams?
an actual one.
Yeah.
Yes, those names. And Dorothy Kamenchik was the best player in the AAGP.
See how skillfully Emily wove the real historic information into her story? That's exactly what I want, is real facts stuck into a made up story. And also, I think Emily did something else that's really subtle but smart. She made everybody freak out when, I'm guessing, a little girl yelled out. And she even made a comment about it's like wearing pants, because what that does is show that at that time in history, girls didn't wear pants, girls didn't play baseball, and girls did not shout out, right? So she also managed to get in all of that mood stuff. Well done, Em. Can't wait.
Wear pants.
Who else would love to share today? Oh, I see a lot of hands raised. Let's see. I see Lily Lyle. Let's have Gagan, because we had a boy or a girl last. So let's have a boy now.
Okay. It's time.
There we go. Go ahead.
It's time. It's time to buy the land, I say to myself. And this is from Thomas Jefferson's perspective. So one of the White House members come to strolling down me confidently, saying I should not buy the New Orleans port for $10 million. I completely disagree, I say politely due to his confidence, as he lingers down my hall dejectedly. The Napoleon Empire drops in a whole new $5 million for the whole Louisiana territory. Yes, I say, letting the whole White House know. As I look up, I see most of the White House members looking at me cluelessly. As I let them know what happened, I start seeing some smiles upside down and some the opposite. I know exactly what's happening, so I think of a solution. 5 seconds later, an idea stumbles into my head. A voting. That's all I have to do is start a voting. And in the next few days, I'll have to answer. It's been a few days since the voting has started, and I think the answer is in the two of the voting boxes. So that's all I wrote right now.
Wow, you guys are like blowing my mind. writing skills. Fantastic. You're doing this so skillfully. You're using all of your writing skills, your skills of writing a story, your ability to make a story interesting and well written, and you're adding this historical details in. Woo! I know that I have a bunch more of you who want to share. So we're going to go to breakout rooms for the end of the day, and you may do a variety of things in breakout rooms. I was going to put everybody in breakout rooms and let you discuss about clubs, what clubs you like, what clubs you don't like, what you want to do with clubs, what you don't want to do with clubs. And you're still welcome to do that. But I can tell that a lot of you want to share your writing, which would be awesome. So I'm also going to make a breakout room where you can, there'll be about 4 to 5 of you in the breakout room. You may share your writing, you may talk about clubs, and we'll talk more about clubs tomorrow. If you have questions, you can come back to me in the main room. I'll be on here until 11. But otherwise, today and every day, remember, writers, that when you're writing an informational book, it doesn't have to be boring and dry. You can get everybody's attention and really liven your topic up by adding little narrative stories. And another thing you can do is try looking at something from 2 different perspectives. That makes your writing interesting. It also shows you're skillful in interpreting things from different points of view. That's our writing lesson for today.
Miss Laws.